in 2021, but campaigners say some units continue to limit visits. Linda Kelly from the group Better Maternity Care says women going through difficult experiences are being left on their own.
Still some circumstances where people are experiencing pregnancy loss and partners are being told to wait outside. There is absolutely no excuse for that now at this point in time.
A former president of the GAA says he's disappointed Croke Park wasn't included in the FAI's bid to host Euro 2028. The football associations of Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland have formally submitted a joint bid to host the tournament today. Matches could be played at the Aviva Stadium in Dublin and Casement Park in Belfast, where renovations are needed. But former GAA president and MEP Sean Kelly says Croke Park's extra seats could have been utilised by the FAI.
83,000 compared to 50,000. That's 30,000 seats which you're not utilising, and that money could be used by the FAI probably for developing League of Ireland pitches, etc.
Finally for now, a new TV show which says it tries to champion people's differences and break down stereotypes has already received almost 1,000 complaints. Viewers aren't happy that 14 to 16 year olds are being shown nudity in Naked Education, which airs on Channel 4 before The Watershed. UK regulator Ofcom is deciding whether or not to investigate. That's your news for now.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Fancy Formula One this summer? Watch it live with Ryanair's low-fare flights to Barcelona, Bologna or Nice.
Very windy with scattered showers for the rest of today. Lows tonight of 0 to 4 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's Cash Machine.
Guaranteed winner of the Cash Machine this Friday. And it's a very easy amount to remember. 70,000 euro. Text play to 57557. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock on Friday, and then across the Go Loud network of stations. Barry Dunn will make the call. If your phone rings, answer within 5 rings. The exact amount in euro and cents, and the cash is yours. So the new amount again, 70,000 euro. Over 18s only. Text costs €2.50, and you're playing across the Go Loud network of stations.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Now you're welcome back. Just before we get into the football show, as you might imagine, the Cogig podcast was reflecting on Ireland's 2 games against the USA. So Emma Byrne and Karen Duggan were discussing Vera Pauw's tactics and were quietly very pleased.
I just thought it was really positive. And the formation we can talk about, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. As long as you have wide players that can get up and down that line, it doesn't really matter what formation we play, to be honest. And they could. And we spoke about it before, about putting Heather Payne on the wing on the right-hand side. And it worked out perfectly. I think that's absolutely excellent idea. Well done, Vera Pauw. Well done us, Karen. And then
thanks for listening to the podcast, Vera.
And then this is only going to work, though. It's only going to work if you have players who can hold the ball up. If you're going to play in that defensive low block, which is fine, it's not a problem. One of my favourite teams is Atletico Madrid, how they play. If they're going to play in that low block, you have to have players that can counter. And we haven't had that. So we literally had no options of attacking before. We just defended. So for me, it was really positive because we showed that we can get out of that low block. We can counter attack. And I think it's a great way to go with the players we have.
I think we needed someone who can ball carry. I think we were really lacking that wide option against the Chinese. And that's why we kind of spoke about the ball retention being really poor, and just having a focal point to the attack. And I thought Carusa has put her hand up for a starting place. And that's kind of what you were asking for from this exercise. Like, do we have more players who can contribute to the starting lineup? And I think we've found that we can, and we also have better positions for people. I think when Megan Campbell comes back and we'll have Katie up higher, it'll add another dimension to our attack. So I think that's really positive.
Coggy podcast available now in the OTB football stream, and it's all in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. Football show.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Now you're welcome along. Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent here in studio. Good evening.
Hi, Joe.
Latest in the Champions League, Real Madrid 1-0 up against Chelsea. It was Benzema just before the break. Meanwhile, Milan 1-0 to the good at home to Napoli this evening. Second half's just underway. Chelsea have gone for a pretty compact 5-3-2. You won't be shocked to hear. So it's Koulibaly and Thiago Silva and Wesley Fofana across the back three for Chelsea. Reece James, Ben Chilwell, the wing-backs, Kovacic, Enzo Fernandez, N'Golo Kante, and then a front two of Raheem Sterling and João Felix. For Real Madrid, familiar-looking lineup: Courtois in goal, Carvajal, Militao, Alaba, and Camavinga's at left-back this evening, as he's capable of doing when required. It's Valverde, Toni Kroos and Luka Modric in midfield, and then it's Vinicius Junior and Rodrigo either side of Karim Benzema. Just if you're to take even crude statistics, I haven't seen every minute of the game, but Real Madrid 60% possession. They've had 10 shots to Chelsea's 3. This was always going to be a difficult night at the Bernabeu. I suppose if you're Chelsea, you look at Bayern Munich last night and you would think to yourself, well, don't lose 3-0.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's it. It's like Chelsea are probably banking on some kind of creating the atmosphere for some special Stamford Bridge comeback event. And yeah, it is about like staying in the game, that dreadful phrase, but it's like there is obviously a great merit to it, especially in the under an 80-minute tie. Now you still look at the attacking power Madrid have, and you sort of touched on, I didn't see all the first half, I saw sort of a certain amount of it, and it's true, like, you know, when you step up a little bit against this Madrid side or give it a real go against them, they can kill you easily enough. So I don't know, like as we now watch Madrid sort of going on a counter and Chelsea sort of good recovery speed to head it off, but you have to live on the edge against them a bit, you know, Rodrigo, Vinicius and predatory Benzema. So I wouldn't fancy Chelsea's job to get it done, but it'd be nice if there was something riding on the second leg. Like, is 2-0 a good result for Madrid? They'd probably be happy enough, I think, with life.
They wouldn't be too worried.
No,
I would think. Koulibaly, their amazing sprint, and I would think Rodrigo had about a yard or two on him, and Koulibaly, pace and power, outmuscled Rodrigo, and in the end had the wherewithal to pass the ball back to Kepa, and crisis averted. But Chelsea, touch on the rack, I would say, 50 minutes on the clock, so plenty going on. We'll reflect on Man City last night, who were brilliant in so many ways, and we'll talk about Ireland's game against the US as well, and curious as to what you made of the week on the whole. But we should start with the Euro 2028 bid, the details I would think most people vaguely aware of at this stage. So UK and Ireland bidding to host Euro 2028, submitted to UEFA officially. The headline news being that Croke Park has been omitted from the bid. Aviva is in, Casement Park is in. Casement Park finally going to be built, Dan, is the...
Well, yeah, we'll still believe it when you see an element to it, but it is the intention.
Yeah, there is a one city, one stadia principle, the exception being London. So, for instance, the stadiums in England, Wembley Stadium, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Etihad in Manchester gets the nod, St James's Park in Newcastle, Everton's new stadium in Liverpool, and then an expanded Villa Park. Meanwhile, Wales, no surprisingly, will have the Principality Stadium, and Scotland will have Hampden Park, and then Casement and Aviva Stadium joining the party. 240 million to the Irish economy is the headline.
There's always a number, isn't there? Always a nice round number.
240 million.
Over, I think they said over, to be fair.
And legacy.
Yeah, legacy.
Lots of it. Turkey also in the running to host the tournament. Decision to be expected in either September or October. I do want to get your thoughts on the specifics of this bid. But first of all, you know, you're like vaguely aware of someone's views on things. Just in a line or two, just give me your view. I'm vaguely aware that you find all of this bids talk down the years either tiresome or you think it's also a waste of money.
Not that I think it's a waste of money. I think I would say in this instance, the FAI's outlay would be reasonably small, particularly because the only stadium that's being used is the Aviva, which is sort of in place already, and UEFA carry a lot of the costs. anyway, and the Dublin City Council have committed to a certain amount of infrastructural elements and stuff like that, which wouldn't be coming from the FAI purse. To me, it's more it's a waste of time, and it's sort of, to me, it's just I've lived through too many instances of this being trumpeted as a wonderful thing. And yet, I think a lot of people who go to football week in and week out, I can't speak for everyone, you can't generalise. A lot of people going to football week in, week out in this country just see absolutely terrible, exist in terrible facilities, attend stadiums with terrible facilities, and are naturally fearful and sceptical that this sort of project is just a massive distraction from the stuff. And I appreciate the point of view. You can do two things at once. You can prioritise that on the side while getting your house in order in other ways. But unfortunately, we have no evidence of the house being got in order to get on board with that. We're still going to the same sort of rundown stadiums with crappy facilities with a handful of honourable exceptions. Previously there was talk of legacy with the Euro 2020 bid. Now, I appreciate COVID made life a little bit complicated. I think eventually 500,000 was produced that go towards the design plans for Dalymount Stadium, where the shovel has still not been it's been turned here. And I can start listing projects that have been on the radar for a long period of time. Finn Harps, Glanmire and Cork, a lot of other stadium or sort of facility long-term plans. And to me, I just would always be of the view that I would like to do that first and then do the tournament afterwards. It's a bit like, to me, the major tournament pushing thing is like getting the good room of the house ready. You have visitors coming over and you get the front room looking great and you have a very good time, but there's chaos in every other room. The place is falling apart. There's leaks. There's the heating doesn't work and it works for 2 or 3 hours. It's just, and it just doesn't do anything for me. It just does not interest me in any way. And I understand the counterpoints to it, but it doesn't excite me. I don't think, that's going to be amazing. To me, amazing is not being frustrated going to a football stadium pretty much every week. And I understand that one doesn't link to the other, but that's why I don't get interested or excited by the other. Just doesn't for me. And again, it is the type of thing that gets people energised about football in a way that I find it quite bothersome, looking back over the history and relations of the Irish political classes and football. But very little has happened over a period of time. We had a time when football was the number one sport in the country in terms of, you could argue it still is, but in terms of probably being the national affections, and at that stage all these weird sort of vanity projects again, and Bertie Bowles and all of this, and we did nothing. Probably had the political capital and will at that point to get a lot of things done, and didn't really, and again, when the bid story tends to energise the political classes, political cores, everyone's like, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. People just say it without thinking. This is going to be very exciting. A lot of football people wouldn't be particularly excited by it. Not everyone, but I would know a lot of people who are just completely indifferent to it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a bit like when people say everyone's so excited to have Joe Biden here. I mean, most people I meet are getting on with their day. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the poll cards and the political classes dining out on it. I can understand almost the resentment as they do so.
Yeah.
In this instance, given the minimal outlay, given the fact that the Aviva is very much in place, given that Dublin is well practiced at hosting events, generates, whether it's 240 million or another sum, but it'll generate some money for the economy. It's hard to have a great problem with it. I totally understand if you're not that excited by it, but this is not a case of the FAI funneling available taxpayer money towards a vanity project or a stadium or two, which could be going towards League of Ireland grounds. This is pretty much okay, we're set up to do this. So, on those terms, I, like you, don't get overly excited by the whole idea of it, but I certainly have no objection to it. Whereas if we were talking about a big outlay of taxpayer money going into a football project in this country and it wasn't going towards League of Ireland grounds, then I think we'd have to have a real discussion.
Yeah, and like I do welcome. I think sometimes maybe with
you're a grump, is what I'm saying to you.
I'm a grump. Yeah, I'll take that. But I think there comes a point where you just have to be a grump. Like, you know, I don't want to. Without sounding self-indulgent about it, but like when you've spent the guts of 20 years working in a particular area of a sport, and the same issue, I could probably play back a discussion from 2004. And a lot of the points from 2004 will be relevant in 2023. Yeah. And I, wouldn't be particularly mad on these points still being relevant in 2043. And look, you know, there's. I appreciate you can sound very cantankerous or very mean-spirited and saying, well, look, is it true that a tournament here could be very exciting at the time? Yes, I think the bid will win, by the way. I think they'll definitely win.
Turkey being the main opposition?
Turkey are, Turkey lose a lot in this. I mean, Turkey might have achieved the feat of being more unpopular in Europe than the British government, which you would think is tough. But they don't seem to have a great track record with this. So I think they would be fancied. And of course, like the origins of this, of course, was the World Cup bid. And obviously it was felt that it would be better if the Britain and Ireland bid transferred its focus towards 2028. I wouldn't suggest that was like a unilateral decision. I'd say the winds were moving in a particular direction where it was advised this is probably for the best, you've got a good chance. So it'd be pretty surprising to me if they abandoned 2030 and ended up losing 2028 to Turkey. I wouldn't be expecting that to happen. So I think this will win. So I think we're talking in hypotheticals, but we're not really. We're talking about something that's probably going to happen. So, okay. And with that, my point is, yes, I appreciate you could have made some great memories that will, you know, last a lifetime. And I understand the merits of having, like, there's a generation of people who've grown up here who are not necessarily used to football being spoken about in positive terms or experience a lot of great moments on home soil. So, you know, there'll be generational chances for people to go and experience these games here. I am completely cognizant of that. But I suppose in the broader picture, the FEI and everything that's going on at the moment, like there's these big strategy plans being pushed out. You had me on Marin here, as we've talked about previously, talking about, you know, a commitment to the game here. And I don't want to be sitting in 5-6 years' time reflecting on what's happened in that intervening period and saying, well, yes, we're moving down the line with facilities. Wait till the next round. What's the next announcement going to bring us? What's going to happen? But you know what we have got is we've got the Euros coming here. That's exciting.
No, it's true.
And that's the fear that everyone has, and it's a fear that's guided by history. And until people see differently, they will be sceptical.
No, it's true. And I think I would find it very tiresome if at every opportunity the FAI made this the main topic of conversation and deflected from the reality of the League of Ireland grounds that you
and general facilities. To be fair, it's not just League of Ireland grounds.
You know, in some ways, like I reached out to Jonathan Hill a couple of months ago to sit down, come in, do an interview, and just haven't heard back yet about the state of the game. Would love to do that interview, and in my opinion, Euro 2028 should be 5 minutes of that interview. Grand, rubber stamp it, do it, go for it, but that's not really all that important.
Yeah.
And on Micheál Martin's point, Dan, you know, this is the nature of politics. This is the cost of doing business. He also, in this very studio, after we spent 15 minutes talking about the lack of PE at primary school level, made a real commitment to do something about it. 2 years on, nothing's been done about it. So hold your breath and all that. Not to be cynical about it.
But that's why I'm holding my breath on all of this. That's exactly my point.
Sure, okay. It's hard. Sorry, sure, okay, sound very dismissive. Like, I really see where you're coming from.
I see what you're saying. But I do think that it's healthy that the debate comes to this. I think there might have been a point in the past where, you know, bid announcements were made and it really was just the top line interest in it. And I think, like, you do see it now. Like, I think there is probably a class of people out there in the football community in Ireland who've been around the block now for long enough, and maybe it's just a lot of people I know who are of a similar age, but they're at the stage now where it's just, we're just not accepting this now. And even, like, you know, you have small things like, we've talked in the last year about this culture of, like, Irish players going to the UK on the cheap, which is obviously an issue. Every time now there's a story of an Irish player going, it's a bit of a tangent, but like every time now there's a story of an Irish player going for like 50 grand, there's generally a bit of a backlash going, this is not good. And you also see now as well, and I think it's a bit of a legacy of the end of the Delaney era committee stuff that happened, those lovely successive Wednesdays spent around Kildare Street and the Dáil and Buswell's Hotel and whatnot, that I think now there are probably politicians who see there's a bit of capital to be gained by getting on board with some of these issues, that they're now maybe talking about, yes, we need to get on with this because it's a little bit popular to make this point now. And that's a change when I don't think, go back in a half decade or so, and I don't think anyone in football had the confidence to believe that they could do anything through government, because they thought only one person in Irish football was capable of getting deals done and making things happen.
Yeah. I also think there's a degree which, we've all, as a country, and we just all grown up in the last 25 years, the idea of hosting a tournament like this seems so exotic and so beyond where we were, and now it's well, there are major sporting occasions happening all the time in this country. Grand, we can host a couple of Euros matches, but beyond that, where is football in this country? It's the attitude. As a final point, we were Mick was kind of thinking are we getting that big a slice of this bid? We were guessing maybe there might be 4 games in Dublin.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be more than that. I think maybe there might be people listening to this who are just very, and naturally enough, they'll be single issue focused. Like Ireland going to be in it is a big point, and
guaranteed.
But part of and that's not the case. It would appear. There's 2 nations, 2 spots up, and it may well be that all the nations, the 5 nations, all have to try and qualify as normal. They all participate in qualifying, but then maybe if a couple of them get through and a couple of them don't, the ones that don't, there may be a couple of spots held for them potentially. It's a little bit up in the air. But part of the thing was when it initially came out about this automatic spots, there was a view that Ireland might be the next best after England in terms of the quantity of games that they have. They might be the second biggest contributor. Now the suggestion today seems to be only be 1 fewer game than before. But I think with that, I think there'd be a very strong possibility of around a 16 game and a quarter final here and group games. So I think that the Irish involvement will be big enough. We'll see what happens with Casement Park. It is possible if Casement Park doesn't make the cut that Croke Park could emerge as a reserve, but we'll see.
And as a final full stop, and then I do have to move on, how would you assess what the FAI, who, to be fair to them, are emerging from an absolute car crash, and who knows what kind of fires are being put out even to this day still, but how would you assess the job they've done in terms of bringing League of Ireland up to a certain standard? You mentioned the various strategies and the various efforts, I suppose, to procure funding from government. Where are we on that front?
Still waiting. I'm still waiting. And I found myself just on the ground out there talking to clubs and people a lot more, that there's probably a little bit of impatience kicking in, because I think people, you have to be reasonable and understand what was inherited was, as you mentioned, all the words you use are correct. It was going to take time. There was a sort of a rebuilding of relations that was needed. Within that, there's probably been internal FAI complications. I think, for example, someone like Roy Barrett has been very effective in terms of raising issues like the betting tax, and that's maybe a subject for another day. But this probably wasn't being raised before, and a more coherent way of looking for money as opposed to putting out the begging bowl, which I understand people in other sports would say, well, hang on, you were bailed out a couple of years ago and now you're complaining about money you get from the state. What are you doing? And I appreciate that point. I think they're probably getting a little bit better, the FAI, in terms of getting the message out in terms of why football is worth supporting, the benefits that football provides. The sort of the post-Brexit reality. The sort of the welfare issues almost of like sending kids away as we did at 16. And I think probably they're getting better at getting the message out there. But I suppose there is an element of being told it's coming, it's happening, it's coming. We're in the process of this facilities audit on the League of Ireland last year was expanded out to all grassroots facilities, which to me makes it a more onerous task. But it's always a case of we're getting there. We're putting in a proposal for X amount of money and it's fine, but time is precious here, and people who've seen very little change over a period of time want things to happen yesterday.
No, I can imagine.
I think in 2 years' time, 2025 was the first end of their strategic plan, the first sort of thing they roll out. I think people will, as you say, be judging them on every criteria, not just maybe the 1 or 2 headline ones that might get pushed to the fore.
I suppose it's in contrast to the previous era. I do feel like there are adults in the room now, and they're trying, but maybe it's not as easy as we'd like it to be. Paul and Kerry makes one final point in all this. How is it that we've completely moved on from what happened at the Euro 2020 final less than 2 years after Wembley was completely overrun by hooligans? It was the scariest experience of crowd behaviour since the 1980s. The English authorities showed themselves wholly unable to handle it. In response, not only are we all pretending it didn't happen, we're now awarding them the next possible international tournament. But yeah, delighted to be part of it. Paul and Kerry. Retweet.
I mean, it's a good point, but I mean, UEFA, the one thing UEFA love more than anything is high-class corporate hospitality. I think that's one thing, if you were to list pillars that the UEFA like, high-class corporate hospitality would be well up there towards the top of the list. And that's why the bid, Wembley's preeminence in the bid, will be probably supported by UEFA.
The only thing you would say is it was such an unmitigated disaster and tragedy was narrowly averted. And
I don't mean to be facetious about it, sorry.
Yeah, but they won't, you would think, allow lightning to strike twice. That'd be the only thing you'd say. It was one of the great lessons in that it didn't cost someone their life. It didn't result in some kind of stampede. It didn't result in all sorts of things which could have happened. And yet it was serious enough that everybody, I would presume, concerned really had to take stock. So in that sense, as positive as it could be.
But Paul's right to raise it. But as I said, I think UEFA and like even around sort of the stadiums and facilities, I think the message is very much like there's a certain type of venue and certain boxes that need to be ticked, and I think that does rank above everything with UEFA, and that's why the bid, as I said, I think the bid will probably win.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Real Madrid still 1-0 up against Chelsea. Chelsea down to 10 men. It would appear there's been a red card. I seem to have missed that.
Having a bit of a Chris Kamara moment here, but we're talking about
bring you
stadium
the details.
Facilities.
Yeah. We'll get your word on that. There seems to have been a red card for Chelsea. I'm seeing a red card just above their logo. Lads outside are checking, I'm sure. But Real Madrid 1, Chelsea 0. Chilwell sent off. Chilwell sent off for Chelsea. Straight red for Ben Chilwell. So from bad to worse for Chelsea, and Madrid are very much on the attack, and they have 22 minutes plus added time to get a second goal or two. The other game this evening, an all-Italian affair. AC Milan 1-0 up against Napoli at home. Our football coverage is brought to you by Sky. Catch the biggest live Premier League games every weekend on Sky Sports. We are talking last night's Champions League and Ireland USA as well next.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk. The Pat Kenny Show.
Danny O'Reilly of the Coronas is also listening. And Danny, good morning.
How are you, Pat?
I'm very well. How did you get the word that you were going to have what we would call a noble call to perform for the president?
Joe Biden has been WhatsApping me all week, asking me, am I around? And he didn't want to hear any of the old stuff as well. So, I know, listen, we got the call from the US Embassy only the other day. We're looking forward to it. It'll be a bit of crack.
The Pat Kenny Show.
With Aviva Insurance.
Weekdays at 9 a.m. on News Talk.
Book an adventure this April with Go Breaks and explore Ireland's best loved destinations. From the natural beauty of Kerry and Donegal to the buzz of a city break in Cork, Galway or Limerick. Find the perfect hotel from just €105 per night for 2 people sharing. Or discover our sunny new European hotel deals. From Milan to Malaga, Lanzarote to Lisbon. Go experience, go explore with Go Breaks. As recommended by News Talk. Go Breaks. T's and C's at gobreaks.ie.
Right, next call is Main Street.
Did you see the match last night?
I'd say there wasn't a cow milked in the county after that win. Whoa! What was that?
No, a stone hit it.
Well, at least we can say that your windscreen is good. Crack?
Your van is important to your business, so talk to Allianz about insuring it. Call us on 01 448 4848 for a quote. Allianz PLC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Standard acceptance criteria, terms and conditions apply. Windscreen cover is only included with comprehensive cover. Calls may be recorded.
Fighting Words, Ukrainian action in Ireland and the Irish Red Cross have come together to host an exciting concert by some of the best loved artists from both Ireland and Ukraine at Vicar Street on Monday 24th of April. Come show your support with more than 20 great Irish and Ukrainian artists including Glenn Hansard and Colin McInumra, Kathy Davey, Roddy Doyle and Paul Muldoon, all taking part in support of the millions who have been forced to flee Ukraine. A concert for Ukraine at Vicar Street, Monday 24th of April. Tickets on sale from Ticketmaster at just €25 or go to vicarstreet.com.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk.
You're welcome, Max. So we mentioned just before the ad break there, Chilwell red card. Rodrigo was in on goal and Chilwell decided to take one for the team and haul him down straight red. So it may well pay off. Ireland lost 1-0 last night to USA, 4 days after losing 2-0 to the USA. We spoke to Karen Duggan at length last night about the week thus far before the game last night. She was largely very positive about the 2-0 defeat and the manner of the team's performance. The performance last night, every bit as good. Courtney Brosnan made a mistake after what were a very good opening 40 minutes on Ireland's part. You watched the game? You stayed up to watch it?
I watched. I stayed up to watch the first half and recorded the second half and watched it this morning.
Okay.
But I probably had it in my head. You know, I'm going to stay up for a while here, maybe watch the whole thing in the morning. But the first half was that good. I think the performance was pretty good. And this is the thing, like Vera Pauw has succeeded where every other previous manager has failed in that particular role, rightly or wrongly. It might be harsh terms in some cases, by getting the team to a tournament. But I think, you know, you've had the comparisons with the sort of the Jack Charlton thing before in terms of like style of play, and a couple of games I've been at or watched, sometimes it's a bit like, oh, it's a long throw, let's get it to Megan Campbell here and hurl that rocket into the box and play off second balls and see what happens. And, you know, the sort of the significance of the game obviously adds a degree of tension because, you know, you want the team to do well. But I would say independently, it wouldn't be a great watch, you know, and if you're not completely invested in it, it wouldn't be a game you'd sort of be massively enjoying at times. And even, you know, at times just throwing the big centre half up front and, you know, chasing the game, and it's fine. Like, I mean, not going into a culture war debate here about another team and what's, you know, effective. Like, you know, show me your medals, show me your tournament you've qualified for. Everyone's going to be chuffed going to Australia in the summer. So this has happened. But I just thought last night showed that they can play, that they have players who can play. And okay, it's a friendly, so you know, you're obviously very conscious of maybe are you being afforded a bit more space to play in that game than you would if it was a proper competitive game. But I just thought like some of the patterns of play were good, better than what I've seen in other matches, and probably just lack a little bit of that predatory instinct around the area. You know, Denise O'Sullivan's a terrific player, you know, like
it's funny you say that, because Karen Duggan and I were talking, like I said, last night, and I was making the point that if O'Sullivan, for instance, had been playing in central midfield for USA, she would have absolutely bossed the game. She, even playing for Ireland, I thought she was the best player on the pitch. She's 100%. The most talented player on the pitch. Both sides of the ball, out of possession, she's N'Golo Kante-esque. In her ability to get over the ground and win possession back, it's frightening. And then on the ball, you would have to say she's just immaculate. You know, she just doesn't give it away.
Yeah.
Her control is always good. Her passing is always good. It's authoritative. It's neat. It's tidy. It's progressive. I mean, she really would not look out of place in any team in the world. And I was saying to Karen as well, she would be within her rights at times when those around her lose possession a touch more easily with respect to them. She would be within her rights sometimes to throw her hands in the air. She never gives any sense of frustration. Never gives any sense of being above some of the players around her. And she's probably Ireland's most underrated sports person in some ways.
Yeah, no, I'd be with you on that. Like, you know, just the confidence to receive the ball sometimes in difficult positions. And I felt they were doing that a bit more last night, taking a few more risks, and she was central to everything. In fact, like, you know, some of the decision making by forward players was actually quite poor. Even Katie McCabe at one point, so, you know, terrific move. And okay, maybe the run off by Lucy Quinn wasn't terrific, but probably even lacking some of the composure that O'Sullivan seemed to have throughout the game. Just looked so comfortable, like so comfortable. And I know she's played a lot of football in America, and, you know, probably would have, I'm guessing with that, you know, played against a lot of those players, you know, more so than others. And maybe there's a natural comfort even that comes with that. You know, you're not sort of phased by it.
I think in most games,
just generally very good. And I know a couple of the players are obviously American born that are involved as well, so they do the same.
To be fair, I think most games against any opposition, American or otherwise, she's operating at a different level of composure, even to Katie. Katie's all action. I think Denise Sullivan's can.
Yeah.
More
No,
authoritative presence.
Definitely.
Because I would say after the China friendly,
yeah,
you and I were dispirited after watching that game.
It was hard going. Yeah, and you have to say that was terrible to watch.
Yeah, it was bad. Whereas these two performances are just a different level of sharpness, a different level of like discipline and organisation, and very promising. So that nagging thought that you have at the back of your mind that was a friendly, and the US made wholesale changes for last night's game in particular, and there's just those few percentage points that are not quite there when it's a friendly. The template that we've seen this week is the template Ireland will bring to the World Cup against often superior opposition. They will be sticky opposition, Ireland, for Australia and Canada and Nigeria. They will be tough to break down, and they had a bit more threat, I would say, back to our China point. They had a bit more threat this week than they had against China.
Yeah, no, I think I'd be feeling more optimistic about their chances of doing okay. Like, I know, okay, it's the Australian winter, it's not going to be sweltering, but they are in like warm enough cities. Like, you know, you got Perth and they've got Brisbane,
Sydney.
So like Sydney wouldn't be as warm as the other two. But I think as well, there is a point that maybe it's just part of the evolution, like, and this is very generous reading of it, but you qualify by a certain way and then Vera Pauw recognises, okay, to get to the next level again, you need a little bit more.
Yeah.
If you go to like warm enough conditions against decent teams and you sacrifice possession completely, well, you're going to tire yourself out eventually. Like, you need to have a little bit more of a threat, a bit more control, and some of those passages where Denise O'Sullivan is involved, it sort of takes the heat out of the things.
And
for
I should say,
minutes.
The World Cup schedule, which is nearly upon us now, July 20th, it is 3 matches in 8 days across 8,000 kilometres.
Yeah.
So it's a tough schedule to do the blood and guts, fire and brimstone performance on 3 consecutive occasions in 8 days.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And I mean, I suppose, like, you know, the other element of it, and I one thing that, I wouldn't be mad on it, but it just shows to show things are evolving. Like, I mean, the new recruits that have emerged in the last while, you know, and maybe there's parallels with USA 94. You just, again, you just get them in. If they're good enough, they're better than what you have. That's it. You just make a cold, emotion-free decision in terms of your thinking. As I'm not saying there wouldn't be emotion around it, but there seems to be a sense of there's players coming in, getting their chance, you know, adding something to the mix, and it's a case of, in maybe one ways, there was that qualifying plan, as I said, and now this is just the plan B, which is the tournament plan, and they might be better equipped to do something with it.
I would have said Aoife Mannion had her seat on the plane booked after her debut. She just slotted in defence and just looked a cut above what Ireland had up until that point. And then it's been really striking the extent to which Sinead Farrelly, and it's the most extraordinary story to not play football for 6-7 years and suddenly play an hour for Ireland on the back of just 20 minutes competitive football, and for Vera Pauw to be that effusive, to be effectively saying Sinead Farrelly changes tactically what we can do once we get our fitness up to speed, which I'm sure we will. Yeah, she's probably on the plane.
Isn't it mad? Doesn't that show as well probably how good the levels are in America as well too?
Yeah.
And I mean, I know you're talking about an individual there, but like you know, that you have someone who could be out. I mean, it's an incredible story, but like just purely the football side of it, that you could be out of the game for that long and still be able to come in at
a 33-year-old.
Yeah. Now, like, I mean, I suppose that shows in other ways, you know, that the level itself generally has a way to go. Like, that shouldn't be the case. You know, in reality, that shouldn't be the case. But it does show how like some countries are like operating and have a system there that's like, you know, established in such a way that the level of players, and you see that with one or two of the Irish players that have been recruited as well, who probably wouldn't have been really on the radar of the USA national team, but they're good enough to play for Ireland. It does just reflect the levels that still exist, and the game is still growing to a point where it really has like really developed tiers, you know, between the sort of levels of players. And it's a great personal story, but it does strike you as like, wow, like that you're able to do that is about a great thing, and a slightly that's a reminder there's a bit to go as well.
Asensio scored for Real Madrid, so they're 2-0 up against 10-man Chelsea, and there are 10 minutes to go plus added time. So now we're into that Bayern Munich territory of you're still in the game, you're still in the tie, certainly, if not quite the game. Do not concede a third. Somehow you'd back Madrid if they were to really push for it.
Yeah, I think in some ways for Chelsea there's such a focus on Lampard, isn't there? I mean, you'd say in some ways like they're probably in that stick or twist dilemma at 1-0, and they've now conceded the second, but sometimes going down to 10 men makes the decision a bit easier. Well, here's what we do.
Yeah.
but they've still managed to concede after going 1-0 behind. You know, in a weird way, sometimes teams can, if they're stuck between two philosophies and then they lose a man, they can sometimes find defending easier with 10 men. But clearly Madrid have moved them around to avoid that.
On Man City 3, Bayern Munich 0, it's starting to feel like a very good week for City. I feel like, in my mind, having really felt Arsenal were in with a great shout, it now feels like City look irresistible. In my opinion, it was very much 2 points dropped on Sunday at Anfield, as opposed to a lot of pundits saying, oh, look, a point at Anfield is always good. And the 26th is looming large. It just looks like that 13, 14 consecutive match winning streak that people weren't so sure was in City this season is now in them. Last night they were exceptionally good in so many ways. Bernardo Silva, who often gets the nod in these big games, one of the great underrated dribblers, because you look at him instead of Mahrez and you think, oh well, what's he going to, you know, I know he's intelligent, he's on the ball, you lose the Mahrez dribbling, you really don't. So he had an extraordinary game, scored a goal. John Stones was moving into midfield as well. I thought Stones moving in from centre back as opposed to from right back looks so much more seamless and made so much more sense. I love the Zinchenko into midfield for Arsenal routine. Sometimes it looks a bit too clever by half and you do expose yourself down an entire flank, whereas last night Stones was able to step in really easily, like, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 metres, suddenly he's alongside Rodri and then slip back just as easily, as opposed to, oh, at what point now do I dart back out to my flank? Yeah. So that worked so well, and you know, that's more in keeping with, like, I don't know, like a great sweeper, a Beckenbauer type who'd head into midfield on occasion back in the day and then be, you know, head back into defence. So that worked really well. Bayern were good until they conceded the second, and then it was complete collapse and City started running riot, and Haaland is now 45 and 39, which is faintly unbelievable.
It's like a, you know, playing Championship Manager back in the day or something.
Yeah,
sort of
so
cheat code stats. I
found myself thinking for the first time, they now have a really great chance of doing the double. Feel like it's on.
Yeah, I tend to feel like that all the time about Man City.
Yeah,
you know?
well, there is that.
You know what I mean? I sort of tend to, like, I still can't believe they haven't won the league yet, and yet they still appear to be behind. You know, like, every time I look at the fixture list, I'm like, well, they'll win that game, they'll win that game, they'll win that game, and then they haven't.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the one thing in the context of the league situation, I remember, I think I made this point before, like the fixtures they have around this Bayern tie, like, there's no doubt that, like, I don't think Pep, he would be very, very annoyed if he didn't win the league, but I think he would lose the most sleep from not winning the Champions League. So you've always have it in your head, right, if they end up in a very bruising Champions League tie at any point, you know, it can just have a spill over. And they're still in the FA Cup semi-final as well.
Sure.
So there's a treble actually, or next weekend, to be thrown into it.
Sorry, I'll upgrade that. I think the treble really.
Yeah, which leads to you know, extra fixture congestion, because they'll have a Premier League game that'll be refixed on account of being in the semi-finals. And there is an element of, okay, so now even the second leg against Bayern isn't going to be that demanding. And as it is, their fixtures, the next one is Southampton last weekend against Leicester, and they can get through it fine. And the semi-final again, I think that to me is the obstacle. I feel like there's a danger. Like, at times they have shown this year they can take the eye off the ball. And to me, in some ways, the Premier League race is more about Arsenal, you know, and their nerve, because I don't think City are going to win their way in. I think they'll drop points again somewhere. I think, you know, obviously, you know, they have to beat Arsenal. I think they possibly will do that when it comes to it. I still just think, as much as Arsenal have a tougher run in, I feel like there's possibly an Arsenal argument for saying, if they can win, you know, if they can win all but one, or win sort of, okay, win all but one, they're fine. But, like, as in, take the City game out of it, even if they can sort of just not lose any of their other games, you know, they could be okay, because I feel like City will give them a chance again in the league. But the Champions League thing, like, yes, they should probably win it.
Yeah.
But I mean, they also contrive to lose it a lot. Yeah. It's not a very original point. Like, it does happen in such a way that you just can't say with confidence, oh, they're going to do it. You know, yeah.
It's Real Madrid knocking around. As I just watched them here take Chelsea apart, Carlos standing there, a raised eyebrow. If Man City contrive to lose this thing, somehow Madrid contrive to win it against all odds.
Yeah.
So they're shark-infested waters, but on current form, City look irresistible. We'll take a short break. I want to chat to you about League of Ireland, which is continuing apace. I know you were at the glamour tie of the week, so we'll come back in just a moment. Our football show coverage brought to you by Sky. Catch the biggest live Premier League games every weekend on Sky Sports. 2-0 Real Madrid, 87 minutes on the clock.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, watch every single live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
And 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3.
123ink.ie, miss.
Sorry?
123ink.ie. You know, for all your ink at home or work. They're really good, miss.
Focus, Tara. And 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 123ink.ie. Service without the jigs and the reels.
Guaranteed Irish and family owned, Acme Blinds is Ireland's favourite window blind manufacturer. Experts in all types of motorised blinds and awnings for home, school or commercial premises. We carry Ireland's biggest range of plantation shutters, as well as new children's ranges. Best for choice, value and service. Contact us on Facebook or acmeblinds.com.
We should all be grateful to Vespula vulgaris, the common Irish wasp, because Vespula vulgaris is equipped with an early warning system, only audible when you're in harm's way. Just like front assist, driver alert and lane assist. Early warning systems equipped as standard on Volkswagen's T-Cross, T-Roc and Taigo SUVs, which only kick in when you need them. Search Volkswagen SUV.
Volkswagen.
At Irish Life Health, our benefit plan helps you embrace a healthier lifestyle. Get up to €250 back on a mix of benefits, like fitness wearables, dietitians and sports clubs, like your local GAA club. It's health insurance, but not as you know it. Search Irish Life Health.
Irish Life Health Act is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Terms and conditions apply. Call us to see exactly what's covered.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, all the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
Now you're welcome back. No change at the Bernabeu. Still Real Madrid 2, 10-man Chelsea 0. 2 minutes to go plus added time. In the League of Ireland, Bohemians are 6 points still clear at the top of the table after 9 matches played. But Dan, I think most people have noted the fact that Rovers were 2-0 winners against Bohs on Friday. Followed that up with a 3-0 win against UCD on Monday. So has the engine been started?
Yeah, definitely. Now they would argue that the engine was already started. It just they kept stalling at the wrong point. That the stats actually showed they were playing quite well when they weren't winning. 6 games without a win. I think probably the concerning thing within that though wasn't so much. It was the way they weren't winning, conceding a lot of late goals, which leads you to think, oh God, if they lost a little bit of that clinical streak, which has defined them in recent years, they were the masters of scoring late goals. But yeah, I mean, now they beat Bohs pretty well. Like they sort of bossed it. And the positive Bohs spin on it is that, yeah, maybe Bohs just need a little bit of a reality check. Okay, we're doing okay, but this is the levels you need to reach. And they then go and win in Derry, and all of a sudden everything is rosy in their world. And maybe that's a great experience for them, actually losing last Friday in hindsight. But you just look at the quality that Rovers have, and again, there are levels within football. We talked about levels previously in the context of the women's game. You'll have you've people like Jack Byrne and Graham Burke who have played for Ireland, right? They've been Ireland internationals, and when they turn it on and when they're on song on a given week, you do watch them and go, yes, you are an exceptionally good footballer. And when they click together, as they did last week, just thinking, yeah, like a side that has them in their arsenal, plus Neil Ferrugia, who's a terrific player, who's probably going to ascend to another level and is in Stephen Kenny's thoughts, and then like Rory Gaffney up front, who's last year's player of the year, and that's just 4 players in your front, I suppose 5 or 6 there for starters, and you're thinking, yeah, like, I mean, if you have the best players, you've got a good chance, over the course of time. And just how just watching Burke in particular, actually just sort of gliding around the pitch, controlling the ball. I mean, Graham Burke and Jack Byrne, anyone who probably knows football in Dublin, like they are the outstanding talents of their generation. Just didn't work out for them for whatever reason at a higher level. But we actually, in their age group, and there's Graham Burke's a couple of years older, actually, but Jack Byrne, I think he's 1996 or whatever. There's not a huge amount of them around the international squad. Like they really are like some of the outstanding players in that age bracket, and it just hasn't quite ended up. And they're also probably two home birds in their own way, Graham Burke in particular, who, you know, they're not going to be slogging around. They could be elsewhere really if they wanted to be, but they're happier at home at the top end, and they're good to watch. So I think, I mean, I suppose there's two talking points really. Rovers winning 2 games the weekend and 3 in a row prior to that, and Derry, who everyone was anticipating being the challengers, have played 2 games at home on the weekend and lost both of them, which is not encouraging if you want a title race to last the pace.
I was momentarily distracted when you were talking there because there was a slow motion replay of the ball going out of play at around knee height, and it was firing in the direction of one Carlo Ancelotti, and he stood there in his brogues and with the inside of his right foot cushioned it, then kneed it, and then volleyed it back to his Real Madrid player and put his hands back in his pocket. I just thought,
swagger.
This man is having one of the greatly disrespected careers of all time in football, and doesn't get the credit still for the iconic manager he is. Attendances I saw are notably up.
Yeah, they're up 27% in the Premier Division.
Is that year on year?
Yeah, on last, it was just I think up to 20 compared to 2019. I'd imagine the percentage is bigger, and I think the one point we made as well, UCD are in the Premier Division. If UCD weren't in the Premier Division, and they were in it last year, so there is a year-on-year element there. But if UCD will probably go down this year and will be replaced in reality by one of Galway or Waterford, so it's going to go up next year regardless.
What's the UCD attendance?
Well, they haven't had, some weeks it's 400, 500. It was 9, I think it was 1,000. I meant 1,000 last week because they're playing Shells. They'll go, in fairness, their home games, some of their home games thus far have been against, say, regional clubs as opposed to big Dublin ones. When they play the big Dublin ones, the crowd will be bigger, but they're not UCD fans. They're just fans of other clubs going there.
And who is it that UCD want to support them? The students?
Yeah. I went to UCD. It's hard. The people who are League of Ireland fans in UCD are generally, and listen, that's now a long time ago, Joe, but we were generally League of Ireland fans before we went there and had our own clubs. You're not going to suddenly start supporting a college team. I mean, you see it, UCD will have some of the top Gaelic footballers playing in their citizen team, or, as other college teams is. We don't have a culture of going out and supporting our college team, really, in any code, in any sport. It's just not, we're not America with that. And
no, but to be fair, Sigerson aside, not every college team is playing on national television in the top division of a football league. I don't think it's beyond the bounds for UCD in the next decade or two to aspire to somehow create something where you tap into a bunch of people in their late teens, early 20s who are looking for some alternatives, things to do, very sociable, go as a group, buses around the country, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they've tried, and I just think it's the nature of, student life is transient. You pass through and that's it.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was in the UCD for a long period of time. I used to live overlooking the old pitch, and yeah, you try and get people to go, and people would go maybe sometimes, but I don't know, it could go into a complete debate. I think, I think a lot more, I don't know if people feel that attachment to their university in Ireland that they do, because we have basketball teams affiliated to universities, sports teams, rugby teams playing at a good level as well, and you might get them along for big events, but in terms of consistently, it just doesn't happen. They've tried playing on Thursday nights, in the past. They've tried drink tokens, they've tried all the tactics, but I think it's just harder for people to. Now, at the moment they are in the Premier Division, and as been pointed out, their promotion of their activities wouldn't be particularly good.
If I was to try and get you to, in bullet points, give me words which express your identity, you're saying UCD wouldn't come out of your mouth too quickly?
No, it wouldn't cross my mind. I had a great time there. This is slightly unrelated to League of Ireland attendances. I had a terrific time in UCD, but my time there wouldn't inspire me to go out and support UCD in events that they play now.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. Do you have any relationships like that with previous educational institutions you attended?
No.
No, so why are you asking me then?
Well, anyone who don't play in the League of Ireland.
So but if they did, would you be along?
I would bleed whatever colour they play in.
Because they actually are. They could be one of the teams in the expansion that might come into it. Would all your alumni not suddenly get together and go, guys, the Big Blue are out this week, or whatever their name is, But UCD, they are the only low. The point is the attendance is generally a thriving, and the figure will be higher. We're coming full circle to the start of the show. The figure will be much higher in terms of attendance if the stadiums weren't so terrible. Like, you know, that's the reality of it. There's health and safety limits.
I was speaking
that
to
are
a parent.
restricting that.
I was speaking to a parent who, and he said, "I'm just not bringing my 7-8-year-old daughter to games."
Yeah.
Toilets are bad. It's just not a family friendly affair.
No, well, I don't know where they live. If they went to Tala, they'd be fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
He's not near Tala.
Yeah, there you go. And like, that's a massive frustration.
Yeah.
And it comes back to my point about the start. Like, you know, you're hosting a big party here and saying, you know, we're good enough to welcome everyone here to the third largest tournament in the world. We can have that here, but we're in our own country. We don't really even enforce our own stadium regulations, and now we throw derogations out there left, right and centre. Again, it's generally no one's fault. Like, people have inherited like historical failings with stadiums, but it is true. Like, it's a culture that exists. The mediocrity of facilities is sort of entrenched. And that's a problem, like, because people want to go to games now, and sometimes they're just being turned away because the stadiums aren't big enough to accommodate them.
No, it's fair. Mick tells me anyway we need to bleed or wear black, so I would bleed black.
You would bleed black,
which doesn't sound very healthy.
No. I could add a follow-up comment there, but I will not do so.
Don't. We're pretty much done. What's on the horizon this weekend, League Round?
There's 2 Dublin derbies on Friday. People say there's Dublin derbies every week, but I'm going.
Yeah, Mick just said in my ear there's always Dublin derbies.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're having some of them on the same night this year, as in, like, there's 2 on the same night. So Rovers, Shells and Tala on Friday, but I'll be going to Bows against St. Pat's in Dalymount on Friday, and Dundalk Derry on Sunday because of the Biden visit and policing issues. That Dundalk Derry game is Sunday, so I'll get a rare double header in this weekend.
When was the last time UCD were on national television?
I mean, I presume at some stage on Air Sport they were on. I remember the Shamrock Rovers won the league at UCD going back in time, so that game was obviously on TV. But again, if someone will correct me on this, recent playoffs and stuff haven't been on national TV. So,
okay. And come here, why didn't you enjoy UCD? No, we're out of time.
It was wonderful, Joe.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No worries.
Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent. Our football show coverage brought to you by Sky. You can catch the biggest live Premier League games every weekend on Sky Sports. Full times in the Champions League. It has finished in both games. Real Madrid 2, Chelsea 0. And, still a minute of added time to go. AC Milan are 1-0 up against Napoli. OTB AM coming at you tomorrow morning, 7:30 as usual. And then tomorrow night, Richie in the hot seat, John Giles, Six Nations show, and more besides.
Get real-time updates at Newstalk FM on Twitter and stay informed.
Are you hearing ringing or buzzing in your ears when it's whisper quiet? You may be one of the estimated 500,000 Irish people impacted by tinnitus. Visit linear.com to learn how our convenient